My name is Tess Alvarez. I'm 31. The afternoon 3 bridesmaids snickered at my body in a gold-lit hallway. I decided I would stop asking rooms for permission and start owning the rooms. If you love story like this, hit subscribe and stick with me. This is the whole story. How a humiliating fitting turned into a set of keys in my palm, a sign over a door, and a dress that fit me and my life on my terms. The venue smelled like lilies and floor polish. Afternoon sun slanted through high windows, catching dust in the air like quiet confetti. Crystal chandeliers. A staircase meant for entrances. A lobby where every whisper sounded richer than it was. I was not a guest. I was a bridesmaid on recon duty for my friend, Nina. She was at work, stuck in a meeting with a client who paid late and expected miracles. I had a measuring tape in my tote bag, a folder with deposit info, and a granola bar because I've learned the hard way that hunger makes rooms feel smaller. "Tour starts in 5, said the coordinator at the desk. Her smile was a fixed ribbon. Her name tag said Sloan in tidy script. 2 bridesmaids I barely knew waited near the mirror wall. Soft pastels, long curls, voices pitched just low enough to pretend you weren't meant to hear them. I caught my reflection next to theirs. Thick thighs, strong arms. A dress I chose because it made me feel like me. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear and breathed. We stepped into the ballroom. The ceiling lifted, and with it, my hope. The floor was dark wood. The walls were ivory with gold trim. Doors opened to a terrace with a city view and potted trees that looked important. Sloan shared her script. Strings of numbers, capacity. Package tiers with names like Pearl, Diamond, Starlight. She walked us through a layout with chairs arranged like a polite army. Her voice was warm. Her eyes kept floating past me to the slimmer women. We paused by the mirror wall before the grand staircase. I was thinking about which way the caterers would enter, and whether there was a ramp hidden somewhere for a grandmother in a wheelchair, when it happened. A giggle, a murmur. God, imagine her trying to get up the aisle if the chairs are this close, one said. I felt rather than saw the tilt of her head toward me. At least she's committed. The other made a small, sharp sound. It's brave. Brave. The word that pretends to be a hand on your back and is actually a finger pointing. I didn't turn. I watched my face in the mirror. My mouth went still. My eyes did not. They warmed and steadied, the way a stove glows before it shows the flame. Nina's 3rd bridesmaid, Bless, heard it too. She went stock still. She looked at me. Her eyes said, "Want me to handle this?" I shook my head. I didn't want a scene. I wanted a plan. I took out my phone and opened a folder I keep for myself called Proof. I snapped a photo of the ballroom, then of the fire exit map, then of the posted license framed near the door with the owner's name, Valeria H. Thomas. The frame was slightly crooked. The paper inside had been replaced once, carefully. On the desk was a dog-eared copy of a hospitality magazine. I read headlines about rising costs, deferred maintenance, staff shortages. I tucked the words into the place where I store fuel. We walked the terrace. The concrete felt sound. The ivy on the walls needed trimming. Near the service corridor, the smell changed, yeast and onions. The kitchen, alive. A man in a white coat, chef, leaned over a pan, tasting. He looked up and gave me the kind of nod that says, "I see you." At the end, Sloan handed me a rate sheet and asked about budgets. The Snickerers floated toward the door in a cloud of perfume and relief. Bless lingered with me. She touched my elbow. "That was rude," she said quietly. "It was easy," I said. "I'm tired of being the easiest thing to mock in the room." "Say the word," Bless said. I'll send a paragraph so sharp it files the floor. I smiled in spite of everything. Save your blade. We stepped outside. The city air cooled my face. The venue's name was etched in brass on the stone. The Miramar. The letters had a scratch through the A. A tiny flaw. A story. My phone buzzed. A text from Nina. How is it? Can we afford? I sent photos. I sent the rate sheet. I sent a picture of the terrace with the potted trees. It's beautiful, I wrote. And the stairs are a hazard if we put the bar where they want it. We'll move the bar. We'll push for a package that isn't a trap. I did not send the snicker. I didn't want it in her head. On the train home, I stood instead of taking the open seat because I wanted to feel my feet on the floor. I opened a notes app and typed, "If you ever own a venue, chairs are wider. Every room has a bench. No one uses brave to mean you don't belong. Staff says we, the way Maria did when she pinned my dress for a different friend last year. Kitchen gets respect. Lighting is kind. Bathrooms say welcome in real words, not just tile. When I got home, I hung the rate sheet on my fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon. I do not keep lemons on my fridge to be cute. I keep them because a lemon is a bright warning mixed with a promise. Bitter plus possibility. I made rice and ate it with garlic and eggs. Then I walked for 30 minutes because movement calms my brain faster than any mantra. That night, I fell down a research hole. I read about event venue margins. I read about staff turnover. I learned how bar packages hide profit, how linen rentals eat cash, how off-season dates save dreams. I read about SBA microloans and city grants for preserving historic buildings as public gathering spaces. I read about insurance. I read about fire code. I read about an owner named Valeria who had built the Miramar 30 years ago with her husband, and how she had hosted scholarship banquets for kids in the neighborhood every June. At midnight, I closed my laptop and lay on the rug. My ceiling fan clicked once every rotation. I thought about a gold hallway and the word brave. I thought about the feeling I had in my ribs when a room implies you are an inconvenience. I named the feeling enough. I said it out loud, flat and simple. Enough. In the morning, I called and scheduled a second walkthrough with Nina, with the discount conversation parked and ready. Then I texted a number I'd found in an article. It was listed under a small business mentorship program at the neighborhood library. Me. Hi. I'm Tess. I want to learn how to buy a venue. Unknown. Ambitious. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Bring questions. Bring shoes you can stand in for 2 hours. Tuesday arrived, and with it, Marigold Parker, a retired hotel GM with a notebook full of mistakes she was proud to admit. She asked me to list what I thought I knew. I told her about margins and chairs and linen loss and shame as the quiet resident of rooms with mirrors. That last one, she said. That's your fight. Good. Business is easier when you know who you're fighting. She taught me to read a P and L like a story. She taught me to ask the question owners hate and respect. What is the number that keeps you awake? She taught me to look up property tax records, to find the landlord's name, to learn the difference between buying a building and buying a business. Most of you won't buy the building, she said. You'll buy the name, the future bookings, the chairs, and the chandeliers. You'll buy goodwill, and then you'll rebuild what matters. Every night I walked. I put my hands on my hips and felt them, alive and mine, not a joke, not a problem. My legs got stronger. My breath met me sooner. A week later, I could take the long stairs to the library without stopping at the landing to pretend I was reading a bulletin board. We toured the Miramar again. Nina fell in love with the terrace and the way the ballroom swallowed sound. I negotiated gently. I asked for off-season pricing for a shoulder-season date, a no-corkage exception for 1 bottle of family wine at the parents' table, a smaller bar package with quality over flood. Sloane blinked at me like a person who hadn't been told no in a week. Then she said she'd ask Valeria. 2 days later, the phone rang. Not Sloane. Valeria herself. Her voice had the texture of linen, soft, but with a weave that endured. "You advocate well," she said. "You remind me of my younger self." "Come in." We sat in the office behind the ballroom. The walls were hung with photos, couples at arches, families on stairs, a quinceañera with a crown that stole the sun. On the desk, a mug that said, "Banquet Boss." "I hear you treated my staff with respect while asking for what your friend needed," she said. "I also hear you looked at my fire exit map." She smiled. "Only 3 people a year notice that." "It's the first thing I look for," I said. "That, and chairs that will not bite my thighs." She laughed. The sound warmed the corners of the room. Then she leaned back. "I am selling," she said simply. "Not tomorrow, but soon. My husband is gone. My daughter is an engineer who loves bridges, not bread plates. I can run this for 1 more year without losing my joy, and then I want to sleep in on Saturdays. I am telling you this because you feel like a person who should know. Because you look at rooms and see the people who will enter them. I don't want this to become a shell company's rental mill." I swallowed. My pulse landed in my wrists. "I want to buy this place," I said. "Not today. But soon. 6 months. I can get there in 6 months." She studied me. "That is fast," she said. "I am fast when I am tired of something," I said. She nodded once, like she had decided something, and the decision surprised her with its ease. "If you can show me financing and a plan," she said, "I will sell to you for less than to a group that will turn my staircase into a photo prop factory. I will require you to honor all booked events. I will require you to keep the June scholarship banquet. And I will require chairs that do not bite." "We will put in chairs that hug," I said. I left with a list, asset purchase agreement terms to draft, a debt number she whispered like the name of an old ache, a timeline, and a promise I could feel in my hands. On the way out, I passed the bridesmaid's mirror. I stopped. I faced it square. 6 months, I told the woman in the glass. Make them count. I built a deck with numbers and verbs. I met with a credit union. I met with an SBA microloan officer who asked blunt questions about cash flow and what I'd do when a Saturday client calls on a Wednesday with a crisis. "Breathe," I said. "Then triage. Then deliver." He nodded. "Good." People forget the breathing. I called the landlord's office to ask about the lease terms that would transfer, renewal options, escalators, the clause about reasonable consent for assignment. I dug up a list of upcoming city council meetings because the block was applying for a streetscape grant, and I wanted to stand at the podium and say, "Yes, plant the trees. Yes, widen the sidewalk. Yes, put in a ramp that doesn't look like an afterthought." I also worked. My job in operations paid the rent and kept the lights on. Evenings I volunteered at community events to learn the rhythm of setups and breakdowns, and the 1,000 small decisions in between. I introduced myself to DJs and florists and the rental company with the good napkins. I made a list of people I will call at 6 a.m. without shame and asked them gently if they would be those people. They said yes. In return, I offered to be theirs. I ate better. Not like a punishing penance, like a person who wanted to throw good wood on the fire. I slept more. I stopped saving dresses for days that never came and started wearing the yellow one on a Tuesday because it made me feel like a window. One night, I sat with Marigold and Bless and a spreadsheet and cried. I cried because the numbers looked like a fence, and I was angry at fences. Bless handed me a napkin. "You don't have to be brave," she said. "You just have to keep going." Marigold circled the line about bar revenue. "You'll live here," she said, tapping it. This is where you protect the guests and protect the business at the same time. The next week, I pitched a tiny, careful community crowdfund. Founders Wall. No begging. Clear give-gets. Anyone who believed in an inclusive venue could buy a small engraved tile that would line the inside hallway. Names, nicknames, dedications, a grandmother's favorite phrase. It wasn't a money mountain, it was a bridge. Tiles sold. Messages came in like small prayers. For the girl who was told to stand in the back. For the auntie who loves to dance. For our son, who uses a chair with wheels. Make room. I wrote a mission statement short enough to memorize. We host joy like everyone belongs. And a policy I loved enough to frame. No brave. No body talk. Kind lighting. Wide chairs. Paid staff breaks. Water in every room. People laughed when they saw kind lighting, and then nodded when they stood under it. 6 months is both a lifetime and a breath. It was morning walks and evening calls and paperwork with acronyms. It was a signing day on a Wednesday when the rain kissed the window and my hand shook before the pen steadied. It was a key across a desk. It was Valeria's palm on top of mine, warm and certain. "It's yours," she said. "Keep it tender." I stood in the ballroom with the chandeliers off and the city dusk pooling against the glass. The mirror showed me the same body in a different room. I put a chair in the center of the floor. I sat. I listened to the quiet. I imagined every name on the founder's tiles walking in and not asking permission to be there. When I went to flip the sign to closed for 3 days, new owner, same joy, more chairs. The mirror in the hallway caught me again. I didn't look away. "Welcome," I told her. "Come in." We started with chairs, strong ones. Wide enough that no one did math before sitting. We added benches. Real benches in real corners where you could breathe without leaving the party. We rehung the mirrors so they witnessed instead of judged. We changed the bulbs. Warmth that held, not glare that punished. We put water at every station. Pitchers and cups that said please drink without saying anything at all. I put up 2 frames. One was the policy, simple and large. No brave, no body talk, kind lighting, wide chairs, paid staff breaks, water everywhere. We, in every sentence. The other frame held the scholarship banquet photo from a June I didn't attend, and a note beneath in my handwriting. This stays. I met with staff. Sloane walked in wary, left softer. "You are asking me to be kinder in a measurable way," she said, amazed. "No one has ever put that in my job description." "It's in mine," I said. "So now it's in yours." Chef looked at the policy and tapped paid staff breaks with a thick finger. "This," he said. "We are better when we sit for 15 minutes and drink water like we are alive." I raised wages where I could and posted the timeline for the rest. I explained numbers like a recipe. This much rent, this much payroll, this much linen, this much bar. "We make the bar better, not bigger," I said. "We don't punish anyone for choosing seltzer." We reopened on a Sunday. The first event was small. A 30th anniversary for a couple who had married here when the walls were a different color and the flowers were made of silk because real ones were a luxury. They walked up the staircase holding hands like the world had just become a staircase. The tiles glinted on the hall wall. For May, for Arturo, for Joy. I thought my chest might burst. Week by week, the calendar filled. We hosted quinceañeras with crowns that claimed the sun. We hosted Sikh weddings where gold and red turned the room into a living jewel box. We hosted a tiny ceremony for 2 widowers who found each other in line at the pharmacy. We hosted a prom for a school that asked for extra chairs just in case, and we said, "The chairs are already here." The reviews started to read like the mission we wrote on paper. They had chairs I didn't fear. They had a bench where my panic could sit and wait while I came back to myself. They put the bar where my dad could reach it without stairs. They never said brave like a curse. A month in, the two bridesmaids who had snickered came through the door with a friend. I recognized the tilt of a chin and the way guilt sits in the shoulders. They did not see me at first. They saw the wall with tiles. They saw the water pitchers. They saw Sloane carrying 2 stacks of chairs alone and Chef taking one from her as if kindness is muscle memory. When they noticed me, they paused. You can hear the sound of a true mouthful of pride being swallowed. It's quiet. It hurts a little. It clears space. One of them, pink dress, steady eyes now, approached. "We were here on a tour a while back," she said. I wasn't kind. You own it now." "I do," I said. "You made it better," she said. "I'm sorry I was part of what needed making better." "I accept," I said. "Help me keep it that way." She nodded. She booked her cousin's baby shower. She tipped, generously. I did not make it a redemption arc in my head. I made it a data point. People can turn. Rooms can teach. We kept the scholarship banquet in June. Kids in suits too big. Kids in dresses that would be posted with pride that night. Parents who sat taller when they saw their names on a tile. We served pasta with extra bread. Chef came out at the end and took a bow when the principal made him, and he wiped his eyes with his wrist like a magician who's tired of pretending he doesn't cry. Our second month, a city inspector came for a surprise walkthrough. He ran his finger along a ledge and checked behind the bar, and looked at the new ramp angle. At the end, he stood in the middle of the ballroom and said, "Feels good in here." It's not in the code book. It matters anyway. Not every day was a vow. Towels went missing. A napkin order arrived in the wrong shade of ivory that read as sad gray under our warm bulbs. A father of the bride tried to haggle on the bar package the night before, and I had to say no with a smile that held our margins like a baby. A pipe in the upstairs bathroom sighed one night, and then burst, and we learned the emergency number by heart at 2 a.m. On the worst day, a florist's delivery truck clipped the corner curb and lost half the hydrangeas. I found my breath. I called 3 people from the without shame at 6 a.m. list. We made other flowers happen. The bride never knew. The florist cried on my shoulder and promised to learn the curb by muscle memory. I believed her. On the best day, I caught a mother at the bench reading the tile wall like a book. She traced one with her finger. For the auntie who loves to dance. She laughed. "That's me," she said, and then she stood and went to the floor. The founder's wall grew. So did our list of quiet promises. Things we did without telling people because the doing was the point. We sent thank you notes to vendors who made our lives easier. We kept a drawer of safety pins and a bottle of stain remover and a small sewing kit with 2 needles already threaded because panic does not thread well under pressure. We stocked deodorant and pads and pain relievers in bathrooms with a sign that said, "Take what you need." No questions. We kept apple juice in the fridge for low blood sugar, and we trained staff to ask, "Would you like a sip?" when faces went pale. Halfway through that first season, I watched a bride stand at the top of the stairs and take 3 breaths. The room below went hush with love. Her father offered his arm. She shook her head, smiling. She put her hand on the railing and came down steady on her own. She wore flats with glitter. The carpet held her. The lights held her. The air held her. When she reached the bottom, she kissed her father's cheek and said clearly, "I belong." We clapped. Everyone. Then the music began. Money came in and went out. I paid bills. I paid people. I paid myself something that wasn't a joke. I learned to love bank reconciliations because order is a kind of affection. I added retained earnings to a whiteboard and drew a line that climbed like a new vine. Valeria visited once a month. She brought sweet rolls and gossip. She touched the banister and murmured, "Still ours." And I felt exactly what she meant. She never interfered. She told me what she had learned only when asked. She left as gently as she entered. On the last visit before she moved to be closer to her sister, she handed me a small box. Inside, a brass key hook with the word "story" cut into it. "For the office," she said. "Hang a key on it every time you make something right." We mounted it near the staff schedule. Keys gathered there that had nothing to do with locks. The extra for the napkin closet we finally organized. The mysterious key we found in the basement that opened a tiny panel where someone long ago had stored a bottle of wedding night bourbon. The first key Chef lost and then found in the pocket of his other coat. We hung tails as teeth. We became a place that could say we made things right by counting keys. Nina's wedding day arrived like a song you waited for all summer. She wore a suit in dove gray and a smile that could fund a school. Bless cried reading her speech and made a joke in the middle that saved herself and made the room love her more. I stood at the back for a minute and let my eyes blur. Then I went to adjust a candle so the photo line would be lit like joy instead of interrogation. During cocktail hour, I found a corner. I drank water. I breathed. The two bridesmaids who had snickered months earlier came to stand near me. Not too close. Close enough to show courage, the real kind. "Your friend looks happy," one said. "She is," I said. "You made a good room," the other said. "I want mine to be like this when it's my turn." "Call me," I said. "We'll do it the way you need." Will you tell us if we say the wrong things again?" the first asked. "Yes," I said. "That's the deal here." They nodded. They left me with my water and my gratitude. After the last guests hugged goodbye, after the last chair was stacked, I sat on the staircase with my shoes off and my keys in my lap. The city hummed outside. My staff clattered gently in the kitchen as they laughed about something that had happened with the photo booth. The founder's wall watched like a choir. I thought about 6 months of mornings and evenings and paper and breath. I thought about the hour in the gold hallway and how it didn't own me anymore. I thought about the word brave and how it had been transformed here, not into a euphemism, but into a promise. Brave enough to make a kinder room and hand it to the next person. I took out my phone and texted myself a note to see in the morning when doubt tries to rehearse its lines. "You kept it tender. Keep going." Then I texted Marigold. "We did it." She sent back a single word: "Next." A week later, a teenage girl came in with her grandmother. She hovered at the tile wall while her grandmother checked a date. "Are you open?" the girl asked. "For you?" I said. "Always." She smiled at the tiles and read, "For the auntie who loves to dance like it was a blessing." Then she asked if the bench was for sitting even if you weren't overwhelmed. "Especially then," I said. "We made it for sitting even when the room is good." She sat. She swung her legs. She told me she wants to be an architect who builds schools that don't feel like punishment. I told her to come shadow us on a Saturday. She brightened. She promised. She waved. She left. The door clicked shut. I looked at the bench, at the mirror, at the brass story hook with keys glinting like truth. I stood in the center of the ballroom, my ballroom, and I spoke a quiet line for the person I used to be, the one who counted her own steps like sins, the one who stood in the gold hallway and heard the word brave used as a blade. "You belong here." Then I unlocked the office, hung my keys on the hook, turned off the lights, and went home with tired feet and an easy heart. If this held you, follow or subscribe so I can tell you the next one. And if no one told you today, you belong in the rooms you enter. When a room doesn't fit, we can build the kind that does, together.